Welcome to another episode of the Inflection podcast. I have the unique pleasure of bringing on Yana with me today. Yana is the founder and CEO of Kraftful, the co-pilot for product teams. Super happy to bring you on, Yana.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And one of the things I wanted to dive into is the series of inflection points, right? That led to you to the birth. Could use that term of Kraftful and growing it over the years. What were the primary precipitating factors for Kraftful as we know it today?
Yeah, I think the one kind of thing that's been constant through all of our pivots was really that Kraftful was a solution for product teams, and it was intended to help product teams build better products. And obviously, what led me to that is my journey as a product manager. So before starting Kraftful, I was a product manager and ultimately a product leader and head of product at lots of different tech companies, everything from being PM number two at a fast growing unicorn to leading a product team where we were responsible for millions of users using our product. And throughout that journey, I've really felt that there are a lot of different pain points you face as a product manager and other members of the team face as well while building products. And so that was the pain points that I wanted to address. In the early stages of Craftable, the first iteration was really a very different iteration of what Craftful is today. It was a standardized user experience, and I perceived the need for that when I was head of product at it. And we worked a lot with different IoT PMs, and they were stretched across the connected hardware and the user experiences, and the fact that the user experiences were completely outsourced and they didn't have any insight into how folks were using those. And the solution was to create a standardized user experience that continued improving based on various product metrics. So that was how we got started. And then there's so many inflection points along the way.
Yeah, you've had to make several pivots, right? Just in the last few years and doubling down. I've seen your product hunt launches. You've been number two product, number three, number four, top five products for per day or week, any given time. Like what has that looked like for you? Did you double down on product hunt at the very beginning, or did you at some point figure out that was a channel to leverage?
Yeah, it was actually not a big channel for us in the early days of Craftful because the hardware industry is really not big on product hunt. They actually talk about that quite a bit recently, that they really should pay more attention to hardware, but it's really not. And
Yeah.
so we did have product hunt launches even for earlier versions of Craftful. In fact, this I think the product hunt launch we had most recently was maybe my eighth or seventh or eighth product hunt launch. So we have definitely launched on product hunt before, but never really focused too much attention on it because it wasn't our primary kind of growth channel. Um,
Yeah.
Folks weren't really using it to discover Craftful the same way they do the day to day.
That's cool. That's cool. Thanks for sharing that. As I When I think about Craftsful, right, it's synonymous for me with AI for product teams. And I know you have strategic partnership with OpenAI. Was there a point in time where you figured, hey, there's something here. Let's double down with our collaboration with OpenAI. And before that, were you working with other LLMs?
Yeah, so we've actually always built on the OpenAI's GPT technology. And it was as early as really early 2020, I had alpha access to GPT. And that's really when I started
Nice.
playing around with kind of the solution that ultimately became Craftful. It wasn't really my kind of first use case I tried it on was to plug in a bunch of App Store reviews and see if I could get good insights from it. And it wasn't great, but it was good enough to give me a glimpse of what was possible, and
Yeah.
I kept iterating, and so ultimately, we launched our first GPT-powered solution in 2021, way before ChatGPT took off, and that was our indicator to us as we started. It was at that point, there was just one feature, part of our wider suite of analytics solutions for or analytics solution for PMs. But we started seeing that we were getting so much more traction for that one feature than the rest of the product.
Yeah.
That at some point we decided, hey, we should just double down on this one feature and build it out to be a standalone product. And that interestingly coincided with the fall of 2022, right before ChatGPT launched.
That
And
is
I
crazy.
got to ride that wave. It was insane.
That's amazing. So you were using GPT before it was cool.
Yeah, we're
Like,
using GPT before it was cool.
was that a painful process, right? As you doubled down on, oh, wow, utilizing AI for feedback and surveys and app store reviews for sentiment analysis and, what Kraftful is today. Now you had a whole suite of analytics, the tools for product teams. You doubled down. So did you deprecate the analytical components of your product over time, or was it a hard blast out a message telling them, hey guys,
Yeah.
we're moving away from all of this? What was that process?
It was the latter. It was the latter. It was a email to all of our users. And actually for some of the users, I made it like a personal email even because I was incredibly nervous about that actually. I lost a lot of sleep about telling our users that we were gonna turn off our product because I think much more so than our current product, our users are really putting in a lot of effort to make it work, right? Like when you're putting in
Mhm.
product analytics into your product, there's a lot of like big engineering efforts to put in all the tracking and all that stuff. It really felt terrible to say we're gonna turn it all off. And wife was incredibly nervous. And I sent out that email and I was so nervous about like how users are gonna react and if they were gonna be angry with us. But it was actually quite the opposite. We got notes back from folks saying, yeah, completely get it. This one feature was really what stood out to us back in the day. Really excited
Wow,
about your new product. They were like, our users were incredibly supportive. Mm,
that's amazing.
yeah, it was amazing. It was actually quite,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a scary. And I asked that question because it's conversation I often have with founders and product leaders, right? You have this feature, the data shows that a lot of folks are using it, but then you have a whole suite of other things. And what's the best way to off ramp and not cannibalize your users, your user base through that? So that's what's this big, hairy problem
you know,
to work with.
I think the reason I was so nervous, I'm now realizing as you're thinking about it from the context of a PM, like I've done this a few times as a PM as well.
Yeah.
And and the reaction hasn't been so great. And I think that what happens is if you're more of a later stage startup or even a more established company, you don't get a whole lot of slack from your users. If you end of life a feature or a product, people are unhappy and they will be unhappy with you. But I think that for a startup, your user base, and that's what I learned through this process, your user base are early adopters who are not just your users, they're your community. They're like cheering along, trying to, like, they want you to succeed in a completely different way. Like, they've invested in this early stage company, like, not invested with their time.
Yeah.
And though we now have some investors who are actually started off as users, for the most part, they're invested with their time. And so they just approach it in a very different way. Like they're thinking about it more from, okay, cool, how can this company succeed?
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting, just very different shifts where I may not have been so nervous if I hadn't been a PM previously, having done this
Yeah.
in big companies.
You've been in it long enough to know how painful it is if it goes south and your users push back. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. It, some, I'll say some words and I want you to tell me what instinctively comes to mind. About 3 words. Gen AI,
Creativity.
creativity, sweet. Product,
Huh. I can't use creativity again, right? Strategy.
strategy, love it. And then Y Combinator,
Empowered.
empower, which leads me to the next thing. Your Y Combinator company, what has that been like? The part one of that question. And then part two, advice you'd have for companies who are looking to go through YC.
It's been an incredible journey being part of YC. I think it's interesting because there's a few things in life where you start off and you see some benefits with it, and then it just keeps unfolding and more benefits, and you're like, it just keeps getting better and better. I think, I don't know, usually it's more around personal things in life. Like, I don't know, having children,
Yeah.
in a relationship, like things of that nature tends to evolve into better things. Like jobs start off being all shiny and then you like dive in and you're like, what's going on here? Being in my Combinator really has been that kind of experience. It started off just being a really cool experience. In the beginning, it's incredibly intense. Just those
Yeah.
3 months as you're going through YC and you're with a bunch of startups. That's nice, but you're also just like getting a lot of pressure to move really fast. You're not necessarily at the same stages as the other companies. In our case, like I had a job when I got into YC, so
Wow.
this was a baby company, right? And then there were some other companies in my batch who had been around for 3 to 5 years, very different stages. And then trying to be at the same stage as some of these other companies. And just as you're trying to figure out just how to get off the ground,
Yeah.
that, that was, I don't know, it was fairly intense experience. But then as you go, as I guess as I went, it just kept unfolding and getting better and better. And so I think just at the end of YC, fundraising was a much smoother experience than any of the fundraisers I've done prior to YC, and it really actually subsequently too. And then just all the different types of help that you get from YC. Most recently, I've reflected on the fact that we've hired 70% of the Kraftful team through the YC platform. So
Wow.
yeah, so there's just so many different ways in which they're helpful through the journey of the company that just keep discovering new ways YC can be helpful, which is really fun.
Yeah. That is amazing. That is good. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh my gosh. As we talk through YC, another thing that comes to mind, I know YC, Paul Graham at YC pioneered the doing things that don't scale. And how did that look like at the early days for Kraftful as you figured out your case, your market, your product fit, and scaled that? Is that something that really helped out to really narrow down and work on the things that you can't really scale?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about that all the time. Even now, this week, I spent a disproportionate amount of time talking with users in intercom, right? That is something that does not scale for a founder CEO to do. But I think it's important the week after launch, people are coming and they have issues they want to work through. It's a perfect opportunity for me to dive in and try to learn more, but it's unscalable. But it makes sense to do because this is how we make sure that there's a core user base of users who really love our product. But that's been true. I think there's been so many different instances where I think if you didn't have that mindset, we would have done things very differently, where we would have said, okay, we have to, even as we launched this version of Kraftful, the Copilot, in early 2023, we had built really just this skeleton of an MVP. And we launched it knowing that it's completely unscalable. And of course, then what we didn't know was just how big of an influx of users we're going to get. And so we did,
Yeah.
and everything broke.
Oh
Um,
no.
but it's okay. I think and it was incredibly painful at the time. And we were just so incredibly stressed out trying to fix it all. But had we done it differently, had we tried to build for scaling, we would have launched when we launched. We wouldn't get to ride the big AI wave the way we did. We wouldn't get to build a name for ourselves in this space, and someone else would have gotten there instead of us. So I think there are a lot of reasons why you should always kind of focus on that mindset as a
Yeah, absolutely. W- As you look back at the early days, are there some things you would do differently? Or maybe one thing stands out to you if you were to go back again?
I would probably have given up on the hardware industry earlier.
Yes.
But it was so hard to know because so many of these things were like macro and economic issues with
Yeah.
COVID and supply chain issues and in kind of the 2021 market crash. So I think at the time it was hard to know, is this a permanent problem or is this just a temporary thing that we'll be able to work around? And we always were able to work around it to some extent. That kind of felt okay, we're making some progress. We'll probably figure out how to like actually grow on top of this progress. But then ultimately realized, no, actually, this is a major shift that has happened and
Yeah.
we're not moving forward in this direction. So I think just in hindsight, which now having just more data points that I didn't have back then, but with data points I have today, I would most certainly have pivoted away from that industry earlier.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh my gosh. But thank you so much, Yana. One thing I want to say, as you look forward to the horizon, what are some exciting things for Kraftful, and how can folks, like in product teams, work with you?
Yeah, there's so many exciting things we have in the pipeline right now in terms of how we're building out our experience to really help folks. Yeah, exactly. To really help folks integrate user feedback into the process, integrate users into the process, and make users feel like they almost co-own the product with the
Yeah.
product. And really, as I touched on this idea that early adopters feel ownership over the startup that they're early adopters for. I think
Yeah.
similar users could have that same sense of a product, even if the product has been around for longer. That's really what we're trying to achieve, but through our product, make users really feel that sense of connection to a product. And I think that there's something about large language models and being able to distill text, generate text, make all of that very personal, that makes that possible in a way that was completely impossible in the past. I think that's something I'm really excited about.
Oh man, that's amazing. I'm excited. I'm excited for the journey as an early-ish adopter of Kraftful. It's always exciting to see the new features you roll out. And I know your team has reached out a couple of times. I love that personal approach against the things that don't scale to get user feedback. And yeah, every new feature y'all push is, it's always so exciting. And I bet others resonate with that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear that because we really try to keep the momentum going, ship every week, and
Uh,
the feedback on everything as much as we can. I'm so excited
I'll
that you like.
Yeah, definitely. I will put links in the show notes to Kraftful, and also to the Y Combinator article talking about the doing things that don't scale, for those who want to learn about it and how to apply that principle to building products that are actually sticky and last long. But thank you so much, Anna. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed chatting.
Sure.